Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Live with Fast Eddie Fair. That's me. It's Fast Eddie here doing a rare solo show. Again, the theory this week was going to be that you would get to encounter me and Zach together, side by side, Kermit and Fozzie style, shoulder to shoulder, from some hotel, coffee shop, or other exotic locale in scenic upstate New York. Unfortunately, I have had too much work, and so I will be working straight tonight through about 6 a.m. when I'm going to get on a plane and head to New York to put the hammer down on some whippersnappers. And Zach had plane trouble, where I think what happened was he refused to wear a mask and was chanting some "they will not replace us" thing. And I don't know what happened, but anyhow, his plane didn't take off as expected. A little bit of a joke there. Had to switch planes. So Zach is landing or close to landing in somewhere in the upstate New York area. So my Zach currently holding the record for the person in my life I've spent the most time with without ever meeting. That record will continue to be his for a little while longer, until it goes to that one creepy guy from my OnlyFans. So yeah, let's get in here, talk a little bit about Game 5, talk a little bit about Game 6. Game 5 was not a pretty game. I've only really had Game 3, Game 4 really enjoyable games on the stretch of one team won either game, but those were the two games which I really enjoyed seeing some more of the defensive philosophies put to the test, seeing obviously that Apex Steph Curry game, seeing Boston really focus on Rob Williams, really work in getting into the paint. This last game was a bit of a mess, unless you're an Andrew Wiggins fan. Full credit to that guy's had a really impressive year for him on any standard. He's been incredible. He's been better than I ever thought he would be since the day he was drafted. I had high hopes for him. Yeah, I thought he was going to be a Kermit Wilt style, and he ended up being not. But he's really managed to keep an incredible motor. Again, the two guys who I least see tired in this series are Steph Curry and Andrew Wiggins. And it's a little bit boring, but man, conditioning plays so much of a role. It plays so much of a role. It stops you from having to play worse players. And it sounds dumb and at the same time incredibly obvious, but I've watched Game 5 3 times now, and yeah, guys were tired. If you watch all the shots, like Tatum was having a really good game on both ends of the court, and he had 3 air balls in the last 10 minutes of that game because you're just a little bit less lift in the legs. He did not sit out since, I think, the first quarter. Might have been the beginning of the second quarter, but Tatum had played the consecutive 36 minutes towards the end of that game. And yeah, the two guys I saw who never looked tired that entire game were Steph Curry and Andrew Wiggins. So I'm sure we're both very tired. But yeah, conditioning takes you a huge, huge way. So there's a lot to talk about. I'm going to try to do more teaching you to fish than leading you to fish, especially because I'm honestly not sure where all the fish are. But we'll talk a little bit about guys we think might be over-owned, under-owned. So I guess just going to chat for a bit. Hit me with all your questions. You can fire them up there in the YouTube chat. I'm by myself. I might get frisky. I might wander over, once in a while. If you're going out and you're looking for some action, usually you go to the club, maybe the library, good church going woman, you go down, see the, a young man famous for his performance as the night patrolman in the What's Going Down episode of That's My Mama. But once in a while, you go to the dark side of town. You go into the YouTube chat looking for something a little freaky. So we'll look at some questions there. Is anyone captaining Peyton or just me? I have several issues with captaining Peyton. The first of which is I don't expect that many minutes to be there again. Now, again, I've lost my last 2 minutes bets against a Mr. Zach Graham, but there was a lot to do with Kevon Looney having insane foul trouble. One of the more amusing things about this game was the fact that the Celtics spent my Celtics as in the team I picked for the series, and they're still live in 7, and that's what I picked. So I'm still live. But boy, did they bitch about the refs a lot for a team that took more than twice as many free throws as their opposition. They had multiple technicals bitching at the refs and could have had multiple more and had at least 2 blown coverages bitching at the refs. And the Celtics took 31 free throws. The Warriors took 15. Maybe a little bit less of the bitching about the free throws when you take more than twice as many as the other team. Maybe work on making them, because the Warriors shot 13 of 15, I believe. And the Celtics shot 21 of 31. Jason Tatum shot 2 of 6. Yeah, a little less time complaining, giving away fewer points with technical fouls. That might help keep the game close, and instead make your free throws. Just an idea. I may have been just going through pages of notes here in no particular order. Scott Foster, the extender, not called in. So I was if Scott Foster was in, yeah, I was going to bet the house on the Celtics. But Scott Foster not called in. We will see how this turns out. I may have been I have a couple times in this series and over the last 10 years, and I'm a big Steve Kerr fan. He is in my top 7 coaches in the league. He's obviously won a lot. I enjoy his personal compassion, his political stance, his treatment of his players, his treatment of people. But I've frequently said this series and over the last decade that I find him to be occasionally a little bit too cute. Part of that is personal frustration, because he runs so many different lineups and so many different defensive configurations that it makes it A, extremely difficult to analyze them, and B, almost pointless to analyze them because there are so many variables. You can still talk about guys and who they tend to be guarding. There are many different defensive systems here. I counted 9 in the last game. Draymond Green is on Jaylen Brown for a large part of almost all of them. So you can talk about that matchup, but no lineup of the Golden State Warriors, particular 5 unit, played more than 9 minutes in the entire game. But I will say, I'm probably wrong with too cute, because he has the veterans and the players with the intelligence to manage all of that. And they are winning the series. And if they win, it will be because of their defense. Boston's defense has been very good. Golden State's getting 95, 100, 104 points a game. That's very good. They're being kept well. Like, their defense is really good. Their offense is confused and flustered. And something that I think should inform all of our decisions today is that Ime Udoka has said the same thing again and again and again. Point of fact, I was almost quoting him there, where he said, I think our defense is fine. We are keeping them to a reasonable number. When we lose 104 to 94, my concern is getting the 94 up. 104 is a perfectly reasonable number to keep a Steph Curry-led, everybody playing 40 minutes, NBA Finals team to. So he has said that repeatedly. At least 3 times I have heard him say the problem is, at least 3 different days I have heard him say the problem is our offense, not our defense. And a good bit of credit is due the Warriors, especially as the series has progressed. At the start of the series, Draymond did not look good. He was excellent, largely against Jaylen Brown, but against the entire Celtics team. Help coverage was pretty good. His rim protection is actually well worse than it used to be. He looks like he still gets side to side pretty good, but he does not get up as fast as he used to. That happens to us as we get old as men. You have a little trouble getting it up. But he did a great job with all the scrutiny and the pressure on him. Like, Jaylen Brown had a really, really bad game. They do not let him go right. There was a lot of, none of this is terribly relevant, but like, they kept pushing Steph to the right, which is what you want to do. They kept shepherding, they kept meeting him up higher on the floor and just making it harder and harder for him to execute the plays he normally does to get open, which includes usually moving to his left on the shot. Conversely, Draymond kept Jaylen Brown from going to his right, which is far better drive hand. But anyhow, you have to give credit to the Warriors defense. They're able to execute all this. And the Celtics are just not scoring enough points. Let's talk about the Celtics a little bit. They lost that game by 10. Bob Williams was plus 11 in that game, playing 30 minutes. Al Horford was minus 19 in 33 minutes. And this has been something we have seen the entire series. Again, a lot of things that I projected or just observed, frankly, are coming true. One of the ones I just observed was the lineups with Bob Williams and no other big are their best lineups. Their second best lineups are Al and no other big. Their third best lineups are playing the two of them next to each other. And yeah. Now, some of this is coincidental. So, for example, the Celtics in this game had one of the streakiest shooting games you will ever see. They literally missed their first 12 threes, Rocket style, and then made their next 8. That's really weird. So they shot 0% of their first 12, 100% of their second 8, and 40% of their first 20, which I guess is pretty good, which is why the game got close to even as they got to about that total. Did not get as many threes as they had been getting. Again, that streak of that best 8 managed to get you into the second half after them putting up whatever the hell it was, 39 points in the first half. They managed to actually get completely back in it in that third quarter. But yeah, things we talked about, things that I said we expect. I said I thought Bob Williams was the most important player in this series. Stand by that. If Bob Williams is 100% healthy and plays 34 minutes a game, I think the Celtics win. If Bob Williams is 80% healthy and plays 26 to 30 minutes a game, well, it's a little bit more dicey that way. He's really, really incredibly good. And yeah, so where the issue is here is the lineup that I think, and what I think matters not at all, that they should be playing is you get Derek White out there. The problem is Derek White has been fucking awful for the last few games. He's obviously had some games where he's shown he can shoot and he can be some sort of offensive force, but we have not seen that for a while. And similarly to Peyton Pritchard in this last game, who, again, I think I said I had for 4.5 minutes and played 4.5, 5 minutes. I think we ended up with that one right on the nose. Said all series, they're going to play Bob as many minutes as they can. Jordan Poole is going to get his minutes to start, but they're going to come off significantly as the ceiling goes. Start of the ceiling, I liked Peyton Pritchard game 1, and he won some people some money on FanDuel. I said they will start giving Peyton Pritchard his time, but it's him who is going to lose time as it goes forward. But sort of the question looking at the Celtics is, how much do you get out of Bob Williams? I'm going to like him quite a bit regardless. He projects just well for me. You can play all the Bob you want to play. But who gets cut? We've seen scant bits of Grant Williams at center. I don't think you see almost any of that, nor do I think you should see any of that. But Bob Williams' minutes have to come from Pritchard, to an extent, White, Grant Williams, and Al Horford. I don't know exactly what's going to happen here because I think he's going to hot hand those guys. So if you randomly get Pritchard making some shots, I think you get 12 minutes of Pritchard. I think Pritchard might not step on the court if someone else gets it going. If Derek White goes out there and starts making some shots, yeah, I think Derek White could play 30, 35 minutes again. Their best lineup this series pretty significantly is Smart, Brown, Tatum, White, Williams. And Al has not looked good for a number of games really on either side of the court. Now, they left him in there for significant portions of the second half. He made a couple of threes, and again, they were struggling to get offense. Pritchard missed every shot he took, pulled him out after 5 minutes. White came back in, missed a couple shots, including a couple open shots, pulled him out, so he ended up 0 for 4 or whatever, and that's how that game petered out. And Tatum got tired, in my view. I think that was fair to say. Again, they were putting even more defensive onus on him, which is great. And you got those long timeouts in the finals. Those timeouts, the TV timeouts, go pretty long. You get 4 minutes, 4.25 out of some of them. It's pretty nice. But both coaches, both teams, forced to do a lot of managing our weaknesses and chess matchery, which I'd absolutely love to see here. So I think it is safe to expect that we continue to get in the low 30 minutes for Bob Williams. I presume, especially with Udoka's spoken preference for fixing the offense, we'll call it what it is, I am, for the first time, kind of disinclined towards playing Al and Bob. To the extent that it's negative enough that in one lineup, I would generally be like, yeah, that seems a little risky. Obviously, it is not impossible. They both get there, but they both score better when they have a full-time center role, and they end up trading back and forth due to switches. And again, a million defensive alignments in both ends of the court. So I like getting to Bob more than I think I like getting to Al in a single lineup. And I don't think the anti-Al narrative is quite as strong as it probably should be. Again, he wasn't terrible, but he's still last slate. If we look at the last one, they were basically evenly owned. I think they were both in the 30s. I'll confirm this. Give me a sec. I have that data in here somewhere. Yeah, you had Bob Williams, 36% owned and scored 34.5 fantasy points, and you had Al Horford, 32% owned and scored 32 fantasy points. I expect those numbers kind of hold a little bit, and I prefer getting to Bob out of those guys. But for the first time, I have a solid dislike for playing both of them. So I think there is, again, we're just looking at various probabilities of things working out the way we expect. I think it is reasonably probable that those guys do not collectively play 63 minutes again, which is what they played last time. Obviously, got to get someone out there. It's not a good matchup for Grant Williams, but Al or Grant or Peyton or Derek is going to be making some buckets, and I think that's the guy they give a little more time to. And that is a little bit difficult to predict. Again, Peyton Pritchard he could not play. His minutes did exactly what I expected them to, and they went exactly where I thought they would last game. So I'm pointing out that there is some risk, but there is a real chance that he is 1% owned, and I believe he's much cheaper on FanDuel and could randomly play 14 minutes and score 16 fantasy points. So if he squeezes into your lineup, I think that is fine. I still think Tatum is going to be better. We are going to see incredibly low ownership from him here. He will be in the 60% range. He has not produced a ton. He's averaging, even though he's playing, I'm projected for 45 minutes in this game. Even though he's playing that much, he's averaging less than a steal and less than a block a game. Those numbers should be a little higher, though full credit to the Warriors for not turning the ball over. Top of my head, if I remember this, you looked at the two reasons this game went, but the secondary reason was obviously the free throw differential. That didn't help. Missing 10 free throws isn't great for a team, but the biggest one was just assists to turnovers. I think the Warriors had 21 or 23 assists and 6 turnovers. 6 turnovers is exceptional, especially for the Warriors, which are a remarkably gifted, brilliant offense that moves the ball a lot. But their bad games, their Achilles heel tends to be they turn the ball over a butt ton. Nothing like that happened. 21 assists and 6 turnovers, or 23 and 6. I'm going to go with 21. Is an incredible performance. The Celtics were 18 and 18. That is not a lot of assists. Anytime you get under 20 assists, that isn't exceptional. Though, again, this is obviously a very difficult matchup. 1 turnover per assist is not Tyus Jones' wet dream. That is truly bad stuff. Yes, Jason Tatum, congratulations. Name immortalized in the record books, the most turnovers in a postseason. So, it is a tough spot for Jason Tatum. Due credit to frickin' Andrew Wiggins again. Like it is difficult to, when you just talk about the Celtics in general, how much do you blame their offense and how much credit do you give this Warriors defense? This Warriors defense is obviously very good. I would have said since January 1st in the second half of this year for both scheduling and regulation purposes. They were probably the second best defense in the NBA after the Celtics. They were really good. But this is how much is their credit and how much is the Celtics just kind of being flat. And I blame the Celtics offense a little more than I credit the Warriors defense, which isn't to say they're not executing on a very high level. And again, I may be underestimating the effectiveness of Steve Kerr's witchcraft, but there's a whole lot of air balls and missing quasi-open shots and enough that I feel like the and missing free throws and turning the ball over that much. I think you generally have to credit. Again, this last game was a little bit distorted by the fourth quarter turnovers, but Warriors have always been good at that. And again, credit needs to be given to Draymond and Clay, and even Poole, both of whom, all of whom, were real defensive liabilities in the early part of the series. Like I said, after game 1 and after game 2, Jaylen Brown is just cooking Clay on both ends, and he was. He was just a better player on both ends of the court. Clay was not staying in front of him, Clay was not defending him well, and Clay was not scoring on him. He's improved in both those categories and played more minutes as the series goes on. And he and the team deserve well credit for that, because he got out there and played 40 minutes, got down in the front court more. They really stifled the Celtics to some extent, and they need to be given credit for them. Like, no one on the Celtics got dimes. I don't think anyone got 5 assists on the Celtics. I'll look that one up, but my impression is no, 4 for Tatum, 4 for Brown, 3 for Derek White, 2 for a couple people. No one on the team got 5 dimes. That's really saying something. You had 8 for Curry, 6 for Draymond on the Warriors. And again, just played. 6 turnovers is brilliant. So if the Celtics lose this game, they should be relegated, says Mike Johnson of the YouTube chat. That seems strong. They've won multiple games in the NBA Finals. That's a little bit of a heavy take, but yeah, there's obviously some pressure on them, and we will see how they respond. How many minutes do you have for Big Al? I've been going back and forth in the mid-20s to high 20s most of the day. I suspect I'm going to have somewhere around 29. Yeah, I have Al for 29 minutes. That is going to be lower than literally everyone else's projection, just to be clear. And I like to say this because when I have something different from everyone else, I will assume I am wrong and they are right. So I have him for 29 minutes. More than that is obviously a possibility. Just played 33, has played that many or more. I think there's a real chance that he gets a lot of time, but I think there's a chance Ime Udoka does some fairly basic coaching and notes that his best lineups are not with Al Horford out there. There is, and again, in game 4, if Bob Williams hadn't tapped out of that game and asked out, Al Horford was going to play 25 minutes. So as much as it sounds like he ended up playing, I think it was 28, 29. I'll double check in a second. But I am more conservative on Al Horford than everyone else. And I don't know if I'm right or wrong, but I'm sure there is a real possibility he plays 20x in minutes. And you can get into the theory of, he played, he played some 40-minute games not that long ago. That's a lot for a guy. But again, we're on 2 days rest. I don't like to make that up as a narrative, so I don't know. But I have Al Horford for 29 minutes. I am nervous having him that low. And I suspect that is well lower than other people. I have Bob Williams for 30 and a half minutes as a comparison. I have Bob Williams for 30 and a quarter fantasy points, so I have him just less than a fantasy point a minute. I have Al Horford for 26 and 3/4 fantasy points. I have him for closer to 0.9, which is still certainly not horrible production. And I suspect Al is, I'm trying to remember their salaries today. I apologize for, it has been a day, so a lot of the stuff I normally rely on my good friend Zach to do. I'm playing a little catch up here, managing everything all by my lonesome. But your salaries on these guys, a lot of people are asking about Horford, and he's now $300 less than Bob Williams. So yeah, I think their ownership will hold roughly concurrently, and I would much rather play Rob Williams. I have no issue with someone playing Horford. He could play 36 minutes. He starts making some threes. We have seen big games out of him in the playoffs. But the ownership there is going to be fairly significant. Getting into some other questions. You've been building some Celtics win big 5-1 lineups. In that scenario, who would you like as a lone warrior? I think that's probably the wrong way to do it. And by that, I mean, I don't think I'm focusing on this is the one warrior. I guess what I'm saying is, if the Celtics win big, I'm expecting the Celtics to do well. I'd kind of want whatever the hell money I have left over to go into whatever my one warrior choice is. So is it the minimum? I'm probably going to play Kuminga still, I'll go with. Is it a little more than a minimum? You probably go with Bielitsa, though, again, that, like, we keep trying it. It hasn't gone well. I think I got those minutes right on also last time, where he had played 9 and I had him for 5 and he played exactly 5. They don't want to do that, but you got a couple minutes of Andre Iguodala at center, by the way, in this game. For those of you who were paying attention, again, all that was heavily predicated on the foul trouble for Kevon Looney, which, if I was the Celtics, would obviously make me start screaming and complaining. Looney is another strong inflection point. I still like getting to Looney. They are obviously not big fans of Jordan Poole. They are leaning on the defense. I'd probably come in under on Gary Payton. Gary Payton is going to be very popular. Gary Payton has been outstanding. Gary Payton is not this good. He's really good. He should get a contract. I will say something ridiculous that you can quote me and get people who don't watch basketball on Twitter pissed at me about. If you told me I could get on the exact same contract Gary Payton and Jordan Poole for the next 5 years, I would sit there and think about it for quite a while. Gary Payton is very good. It would depend on whoever the hell else is on my team. But he will not continue to make 75% of his shots. He will probably get less than 3 steals a game, and I have him for a little under 20 minutes. He's fine, but he has repeatedly been in the best possible lineup, and I'm not sure that that comes to pass. Best lineup, again, was not. It has never been Tatum. It has been Brown once. It has been Curry once. It has been 3-3 or 4-2 every game. I think with the lack of excellent value, or really tolerable value, it will continue to most likely be medium price guys, where you will end up with more. But let me see just how desperate we got at the bottom here for value. And normally, like, I really don't want a Grant Williams. You're going to get a Grant Williams boost because he's $400 less than Gary Payton. But if you look at guys you expect to play some real time, can you get a lineup of one stud and some mid-priced guys? Sorry, I'm just like building here on the air real quick, taking a look at some stuff. And you kind of can. So I suspect, again, mid-price captain and 6 players who will actually score fantasy points is your best build structure. If you want to go with high-priced captain, you probably want to be building for a blowout or something, because you need to play a Grant Williams or poopier player. You can probably sneak in like a Peyton Pritchard. I was looking at the cheapest player who I felt like at all equitable. I guess it's Pritchard, who, again, I think there's a real chance that Pritchard doesn't play. I don't think Iguodala plays unless Looney gets in foul trouble, to answer another question there. Favorite captain tonight? Yeah, I'm getting a lot of this. Sorry, I'm reviewing what I think for tonight's ownership and what I saw in the last one, and really trying to project this out well. And I'm building one lineup. Who am I trying to get in as a captain? It's probably a Celtic. Obviously, I'm getting a couple tweets and a couple other messages asking about Game 6 Clay. Do I think Game 6 Clay is a thing? No. I don't think that's apropos of anything. He's had a couple good games in a number of series, and he's had some very big Game 6s, but I don't think, like, he's on his way towards getting his 4th ring, and this is a closeout game, and he's plenty motivated. I don't think the fact that this happens to be game number 6 and not 5 or 7 plays a lot into the whatever. Do I think Clay is fine? Yeah, he continues to give you your 20 points, his touches. He's getting more front court touches. He's picking up a couple assists every game. He's now, like, descended in price from being too expensive to being reasonably well priced. I would rather play Bob Williams. I would have to sit there and think for a bit on, Curry or well, not Curry, but like Draymond or Looney or some of the other guys in Clay's range. But I'm generally fine with Klay Thompson. He's been probably a little bit owned. Again, it started to come down. He has not had the most brilliant playoffs, and if you've watched him for a decade, he's not quite what he once was. But obviously can knock in enough buckets where you can get a 30-point quarter out of Klay Thompson. So he was 47% owned last time, I think. that's getting towards where it should have been. He was the 4th highest owned player. You're now saving $600 on him in utility spot versus Andrew Wiggins. I do have Wiggins projected for a little more, but they're about equitable there. I think you can make an argument that Smart as captain is an interesting choice. Again, we have not seen the I regret not playing Marcus Smart total in a while. He has between 35 and 40 in, I think, 3 of his last 5 games. That does not hurt you that much, but those are all games in which he shot pretty well, and you wonder how significant the ceiling is. But the ownership on him is going to get pretty small here. He's going to be down to 32%, 31%, because people are going to play, I think, Draymond, Wiggins, obviously, Clay, Horford all over him. You can make an argument that Looney will be a really good deal at his ownership. 2 games ago, when they announced Porter starting over Looney, he went down to 9% ownership and proceeded to play 28 minutes off the bench, which I think was about the plan last game. Then last game, massive foul trouble in the first half, got 3 fouls in, I think, 4 minutes, only ended up playing 17 minutes, I think it was. Still fairly productive. I think I have him for 24 minutes right now. I imagine they want to play him closer to 26 minutes. But in that last game where it became clear they were intending for him to have a significant role off the bench, he got up to about 28% owned, I think. That number's going to come back down now because some casual people will look at the minute swing and be like, oh, it's not 28, it's 17, and not realize the foul trouble. So I probably like Looney, who's going to be 20% owned, a little better than he is. I keep worrying about people getting chalky on Gary Payton, and he has overproduced, but he has not been that highly owned. I thought last time I had him where I thought he was going to be in the 40s owned, and Gary Payton was 27% owned last time. And I guess I will give some credit to sites people for understanding that he is historically not that damn productive. He just does not score that many fantasy points. I don't know how to say it any better than that. So, but he still, appears to be fine. I don't think the ownership gets out of control, but he's had several good games in a row based on, I'm slightly overstating that. He's had several fantasy productive games where he's appeared in the optimal lineup in 2 of the last 3 games, scoring like 18 and 12 fantasy points, but doing so in not as many minutes as you would think it would take for him to do that. So he normally will not be that productive. And I'm getting resort my fields because I'm getting my Gary Payton, my Grant Williams twisted like chocolate and peanut butter here. So you had, this last game where again, he had 28 fantasy points in 26 minutes. That's more than he's usually going to make. Again, 3 steals, made almost every shot from the field. That's quite a bit. So we've had just a lot of Gary Payton in our lives. So I worry that ownership swells, but if he stays in the 30s, which seems like the most likely scenario, I certainly think you can get back there. But again, those minutes are predicated on them continuing to limit Jordan Poole, which I think they do. Jordan Poole finally ended up where basically we thought they would. They gave him very little time when Steph was on the court, got a total of 14 minutes. I think it was, scored 14 points, and I think he literally had 14 points on a turnover. You're leaning Robert Williams captain and getting all starters, but unfortunately it's Time Lord and Horford. I don't think it's a deal breaker. But yeah, that's obviously a part of the concern there. Who do you say will get more DFS points tonight, Wiggins or Smart? I have to project Wiggins for more. I will give you the exact numbers I'm using right now. I have Wiggins for 36.25 and Smart for 34.75. But I do think Wiggins is going to be 50 some odd percent owned and Smart is going to be 30 odd percent owned. So that certainly gives you an inflection point on which you can make some sort of move there. So just generally going over, I think Smart still, and I think Tatum and Brown end up still a little bit too owned. They both ended up in the optimal lineup last game, by the way. For the first time, by the way, that they both made it. Game 5 was the first time that both Tatum and Brown made it. that had something to do with a reasonable value play getting there, that being Gary Payton, Andrew Wiggins by far being the best captain at a middle-of-the-road price, and Steph Curry missing every three-pointer he took for the first time in 4 years and the first time ever in 100 and, I have no idea, 40-odd playoff games. So that is not a likely scenario. But those guys are generally going to be pretty low owned again, specifically Brown, who was 38% overall. That is a very small number for a guy who does carry with him a pretty significant upside. So I will nominally answer all your questions of who my favorite captain is with Jaylen Brown. I lean slightly that way, but there is nothing that jumps off the top rope at me. But Jaylen Brown is going to play 40 whatever minutes if this game isn't a redunculous blowout, and is going to be 35% owned and 9% at captain. Those numbers are all pretty damn appealing for me. So I will go that way. Look at some more notes and some more questions. Draymond Green. Yeah, Draymond is fine. Again, had a couple really poor games, came back. His minutes are not quite what they would be, and that has a lot to do with it. Like, he's fouled out 3 times in 5 games. That's quite a bit. It's been 20 years since someone fouled out 3 different games in the finals. That's quite a bit. Yes, Ime Udoka came out and said the training staff had informed him that Bob Williams' knee wouldn't be hurt long-term by continuing to play on it. Again, Isaiah Thomas made a funny about that in the chat. I think Kevin Durant could have certainly made a funny about that on the Twitter. But in theory, but yeah, he's been, again, Bob Williams, key to the series. He's really, really good. Like, he sometimes ends up in tough positions because one of those they're dealing with Steph at all is forcing them to move up and up and up the court, and he occasionally gets switched into a bad spot. He's obviously not 100%, but so good. I say again, plus 11 as a starter in a lineup that they lost by 10. I mean, it is poof. Did Otto Porter start last game? I didn't catch the beginning. He started the last 2 games, and he's fine. His ownership swelled to an unreasonable point when he was announced the starter 2 games ago. It came back to earth significantly. They're looking to play 15 minutes. It's so that they can stagger Looney and Draymond, which they want to do, that they can start spaced to beat the piss out of the double big Celtics lineup that doesn't deal well with it. It's honestly a pretty smart move by Steve Kerr there, and Ime Udoka should pull Horford out earlier at least. Like, there's a reason that the Warriors are leaping out. Let's see. Questions? Tweets? What do I think about stochastic? That's really funny. Osmo, my old stomping grounds, renamed themselves as a misspelling of stochastic, which is it comes from the same Greek root as stoichiometry, which has to do with the usage of data to solve for answers or range of questions when there's still some randomness left. It's a fine way to describe a good statistical orientation. I'm more interested by what it portends than what it actually says. Like, even by itself, it seems incredibly stupid. Like, you've gone from some kind of name recognition to none. You've gained, you didn't even spell it right. So literally no one will, 2% of people will know what stochastic means anyway. And for that reason, if you go through, all right, so here's your junior marketing as someone who's done a fair bit of marketing. Roto grinders. Oh, it's a fantasy word. Grind means something. It's memorable. Strong. Memorable is important. It's not as short as you would like it to be. Roto grinders is 12 characters, I think. It's a little long than you'd like to get to, but intuitive sticks, you're good there. FTN, 3 characters. Obviously, you have to put some sort of suffix on it, but even FTN Daily, 8 characters. Hard to forget. Not evocative, which is something else you want marketing to do. But, got it. Fan Vice. Yeah. Elite. Elite Fantasy. Guru Elite. These are all things that are, have some declarative value and make sense. Stochastic is in my understanding. Now, the reason I would say that it would make me hopeful for them as a business is that it probably comes because they have someone sniffing around as far as an acquisition merger or something. Like they had something, like the reasons. It would be very weird for this to have happened apropos of nothing. Hey guys, after 5 years, we've got some name recognition. We've got some branding that works. Alex is a unique individual, and using him as a figurehead kind of works. And people tend to like that. So that was kind of working. So for some reason, they threw all the branding aside and decided to do a lot of work to go with a much, much worse name. There's two possibilities. One, they actually thought this was a good name. Okay. Maybe. Two, they were involved in some sort of talks with either angel investors where they're trying to pick up some more money to take their shit to a next level, or some NGM Grand Yahoo, something where they're looking at an acquisition or a partnership or something. And they went, yeah, your title is dumb. Or we are worried that we're going to get a call from Comedy Central because your title is eponymously taken from an episode of South Park. So the title itself is awful. And if anyone thinks otherwise, they've not been to business or marketing school. But I think it's probably good news for the company, because I imagine it portends that some greater business opportunity was stymied by the current nomenclature. Do you think this game stays close? Do you lean 3-3 build tonight? Those things have relatively little to do with each other because of the way value works. Like, you don't have, like, just whether or not you end up playing Peyton Pritchard or Nemanja Bjelica doesn't really speak to that sort of balance. So this is two questions, but I don't think they have fuck all to do with each other. Your first question is, do I think the game stays close? I do. I think these teams are very proximate teams. We've seen very little blowout run, honestly, like kind of 3 minutes in a couple of games. So I think the game stays close. I think that is a very, very strong likelihood. Do I lean 3-3 build tonight? Not particularly. After you get a couple guys on each, I lean having strong exposure to both sides. But if you told me all you had for Boston was Tatum and Brown, you would technically be 4-2 Warriors. I don't think that indicates that you're really heavily on the Warriors. Let's see other things. Question. Answering a couple in the chats from people who aren't there. One lineup, would you want Steph or Tatum? I think at this point I would be nominally Tatum, but fairly close. I have randomly hit this coin flip a few times in a row. I was on Steph 2 games in a row. That worked. I was on Tatum last game. That worked relative to Steph. I would stick with Tatum again here, but not with a lot of force. But just, I'm building one lineup. Who would I make as a captain? Yeah, I will go with that. And we are coming down to it, my friends. But yeah, the ownership on Jaylen Brown last time was particularly juicy. And he was 39% overall owned, 6% in the captain spot. 6% for him is for a guy who has. People asking questions like 10 seconds before locked. Sorry for the dead air, but I have no one here to cover for me. Again, currently in custody, Kawhisenberg complaining about the size of the bags of peanuts, probably. Something like that. We are at 9 o'clock. That is lock. We'll hang out for a couple of minutes. I'll answer any questions you have about, just about anything. Competition in the DFS industry is kind of fun. Web3 games, been doing a lot of research on that. I'll be going to NFT NYC, so I will be in New York this coming week. Upstate New York first to play basketball alongside Kawhisenberg and some other charitable individuals, and then into the city proper for much of next week. If anyone gets the ownership, someone was in the, I think there was $1 million contest today. If you would send over to me said ownership indicating who was owned, I would be happy to break that down and see how that came out, because I'm always curious how we did. But again, as is frequently the case in small games, especially later in series, there is not a ton of edge. You assume the name change meant Alex was selling. No, he wouldn't. it would be very strange if, let's go with your hypothetical. Alex says he is out of Osmo. He wants to go off, and he's got his millions that he's made from DFS and owning Osmo and all these other things, and he's retiring. First of all, I'd be shocked if that was the case. Having worked there, I can tell you that Alex has very, very little to do with the administration of the company. I'm trying to think. Who the fuck is the terrible celebrity chef who does Flavorland? He's not the guy in the kitchen cooking the burgers. That isn't what Alex does. Obviously, he's spending a lot of time playing DFS. It doesn't mean he doesn't have any administrative responsibilities, but it would be very strange for him to walk away. Second of all, in the event he did decide to walk away, it would be very weird for him not to just take a percentage to allow them to continue using the name. Not possible. People will do that once in a while, but it would be a little peculiar for him. Guy Fieri, yeah. So like Guy Fieri, if Guy Fieri was involved in the administration of Flavortown and decided, yeah, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to sit on the board and take 3 meetings, because he's already not doing that much in the actual running of the goddamn business. If he decided to step out of running the business, it would be really weird for them not to be like, yeah, we're still going to give you 2.5 points on the net profit so we can use the name. Very rarely is that agreement not come to. It's possible, but for me, it's I would guess it portends some sort of business opportunity. The content space is a very interesting one. Again, I've worked for 4 different places, and including the one I'm currently at, you're constantly trying to raise money and sell shares and make strategic partnerships and get subscribers. Like there's a 46% Gary Payton Jr. Yeah, that's kind of what I was worried about. It's just overproduced a little bit. Like I would give even money on under 20 minutes right now. Yeah, Guy Fieri. Fox producing me tonight, because normally Zach handles that, coming in, giving me the it's Guy Fieri. Someone send me ownership. Somebody drop the spreadsheet. I see some ownership from screenshots people have sent me, though I don't know what contest this is in, so I don't want to overly guess. But if someone can hit the download button, the export to CSV, send me off a file real quick, I will certainly give it a discussion. But I expect I'll like the number on Jaylen Brown. I'll like the number on Kevon Looney. Kind of curious for some of this lines. But yeah, it's a very interesting business to work in. It's never been my primary vocation. But yeah, Alex could be buying out. That would be weird. You wouldn't necessarily guess. I don't know. I would find that unlikely. I could just ask. Anyone? Giving y'all 2 more minutes, and then I'm going to bounce. Any further questions? Looney 15% DK. I don't know what I said, but that was about what I figured, that he was in the teens to maybe 20. That's pretty good. I think they want to play him in at least the mid-20s in minutes. I think I projected him for 24. I think they want to play him like 26, depending how things go with Draymond. That number can get to 28 or 30. I think I'd be pretty happy with Looney at 14.9%. What's the number on like Jaylen Brown is the really interesting one for me. Like if he's under 40% again, and I expect he will be. He had a very poor game, even though he somehow landed in the optimal lineup, because again, gross points and a little value getting there, and Wiggins being so good. Jaylen Brown, 50.9% on DK. Interesting. It's really interesting. Had a pretty poor game last time. I wasn't horrific fantasy-wise. He had 35 fantasy points, but 35 fantasy points in 45 minutes or whatever he played is pretty poor, and shot 5 for 19 from the field, I think. And Draymond locked him up pretty good. So he had been 38% owned in that last slate, 39% owned. So I would have thought that would have come down or held. Getting back up to 51% is interesting, especially with so many people investing in Porter. But that's one of those times it's really useful to actually run out your own crunch of various moments. All right. Well, that is it. Thanks, everyone, for stopping by. Hopefully get to see you again. I believe it's Sunday night would be the 19th, would be potentially the final game of the series. It has been a really enjoyable year. And I hope this isn't the last show because it'll feel bad that for what you call stroke-tastic, that's pretty funny, was strongly anti-Looney. If they know better than I do their intention of playing him more when, then okay. Like if they're the only reasonable argument they or anyone could have to be strongly anti-Looney at 15% owned is that they don't think they want to play him into the 20s in minutes, and that the limited time he played last game was not getting 3 fouls in 4 minutes and 5 fouls in 17 minutes. It was they just wanted to play Looney more. Or I don't know. I mean, if they're like, I don't want you to mischaracterize their comments. If their comments were, I don't think Kevon Looney at 6,200 is a good point per dollar play, they're probably right. He is still on the expensive side for his most likely level of production, which is again playing in the mid 20s in minutes and kicking out. Let me see where I had him my last run. I had 24 and a half minutes and 21 points on the nose. 21 points for 6,200 does not compare very well to several of the other players. It makes a little more sense to play Marcus Smart or to play Andrew Wiggins or to play Klay Thompson. They're all slightly better point per dollar plays. So if whoever was commenting on it was just saying, here's the points I expect, that's fine to be kind of negative on Kevon Looney. But at 15%, I think you would be wrong not to like him in GPPs unless your conclusion, and I could be wrong, was that he doesn't have a chance of playing 25 to 30 minutes, which I'm pretty convinced he does, or that if he did that, he couldn't score a lot of fantasy points, which I'm pretty sure he does. Again, game 3, the Warriors got absolutely blitzed in the last game of the series that they lost by getting their ass beat inside. Game 4, they played Looney, even though they didn't start him, 28 minutes. In game 5, he was in massive foul trouble. Gary Payton has played well in the interim, but they've already shown they're more than willing to cut down Poole. So, yeah, I would think that I would disagree with someone who said right now they wouldn't want to share. Like if I built one lineup right now, I'd probably have Kevon Looney in it. I'd consider it a captain if the ownership is that low. Like he's had several games this playoff and in this series where he showed he can put up a number together. So they were skeptical on minutes. It's fair to be skeptical on minutes, but anyway, it's like the only way you're skeptical on minutes is if you think they decide to go. I mean, that's just not how Golden State has focused on their defense significantly in every game except for the one they got absolutely housed in game 3. So it would be weird for them at this point to be like, nope, we've got to play more Poole and Kuminga. So it's fair to be skeptical, but I would think a good minutes projection right now should be 24 or 25. Getting to 28 or 29 wouldn't be crazy. Less than 20 absent foul trouble would be weird for me. So we will see how it goes. With that, thanks to Fox for stepping in for absent friends who aren't here to produce today. Thanks for all of you stopping by. I hope to see you again on Sunday. Go Celtics, and let's get those beans.
Let's get these beans.